In today's episode, Aaron asks, I liked the treatment on people, process, and technology. Would love to hear how you think culture fits into people, process, and technology. That's a really good question. People, process, technology, which is Leavitt's 1964 framework, the diamond of productivity, I think, was a focus on organizational behavior. How do you get what are the key components that make an organization successful? And over time, it morphed into people process technology, or people process platform is the way today's consulting firms look at it. When you think about it, that's a subset of what we would call an ethnographic framework, right? So in ethnography, which is study of people, study of cultures, there are a whole bunch of different frameworks that exist for the purpose of helping ethnographers quantify or at least categorize the unique components of a culture. What is it that makes German culture different from Austrian culture? What is it that makes Swedish culture different than Finnish culture? What is it that makes Indian culture different from Pakistani culture? And the dimensions of ethnography frameworks vary wildly depending on whose framework you're using. One of the more well-known ones, invented in 1991 by Dr. Rick Robinson, is the AEIOU framework, which stands for activities, which are things people do, environments, which is where people are, interactions between people and things and stuff and other people, objects, which are things, like stuff that they have, and then the users, the people themselves. So you can see how people process platform can come out of something like the AEIOU framework, because the users are the people, the processes are in many ways the activities, just a much more narrow set, because instead of trying to understand an overall tribal culture, you're trying to understand just the things people do within a very specific context. And then platform or technology are sort of those objects, if you will. When you look at it from that perspective, then, using an ethnographic framework to explain culture and then see how culture and people, process, platform interact is pretty eye-opening. From that perspective, people, process, platform is a subset of culture, because culture is the bigger ethnographic framework. And so you can't have this productivity matrix or this transformation matrix of people, process, platform in a bad culture, right? So think about the things that are not included in people, process, platform, right? It is the environment, and it is those interactions between people and the environment and the objects. From when you think about an organizational cultural perspective within the office, if the environment sucks, right? If the place itself is terrible, if the shared spaces are terrible, if the way people interact with the place is bad, people are going to have reduced interactions with their environment. And then there's another layer on top of even this ethnographic framework, which is more of a metacultural thing. Harvard Business Review calls those sort of there's Dr. John Coleman said that it's vision, values, and there's a third V. I can't remember what it is, but it is those guiding principles that overall dictate how an organization will behave. Vision, value, customs, traditions. That's what it is. What are the customs? What are the traditions? What is the purpose of the organization, which is the vision, and what are the core values that dictate how the organization works? So think about, you have this meta layer of overall, let's call it the values layer, because that, vision and values should be essentially integrated. When they're not, things are really broken. Then you have the ethnographic descriptor layer to quantify the culture. And at the very bottom, a tiny subset of this is people process platform. So what does that mean? What do you do with this information? Well, if you're struggling to get something to work, if you're struggling, for example, use today's buzzword, a digital transformation project, right? You're trying to affect people, process, and platform. But if you have not quantified, categorized, and evaluated the elements of culture, the AEIOU, then anything you do in the people process platform is going to be very limited, because you're not able to change some of the other controlling factors that influence that. And then on top of that is vision, values, customs, traditions. And that, if those are bad, nothing else matters. Right? If those are bad, whatever you do is going to blow stuff, just going to blow up. So real simple example. Suppose that one of the values of the organization is maximizing shareholder value, which occurs in far too many corporate mission statements. Maximizing shareholder value implicitly then says that everything else is less valuable than shareholder value. So employee happiness, productivity, innovation, all those things, none of those things are in a formula to maximize shareholder value, whereas things like net margins, reduced costs, etc. In those values then trickle down to the AEIOU, because it dictates what activities you can have. It dictates the environment that you're in. If a company is hell-bent on cost cutting, guess what? You're going to be working with the crappiest office furniture. You're going to be in the dingiest workplace. You're going to have the cheapest possible computers. And so that in turn impacts the interactions people have with their environment. It reduces the objects and the quality of the objects in the environment. And ultimately, if you are so focused on cost reduction as a tenet of that maximizing shareholder value, you're going to make bad hires. You're going to make the hires that you can afford rather than the hires that you need, the people that you need to bring something to life. And so people process platform falls apart, right? You don't have the right people. The processes are degraded, and the platform is as cheap as the cheapest one available. And so something like an imperative like innovation, which, by the way, builds long-term shareholder value, innovation falls apart, or innovation is not present, and no one prioritizes it. And so the very wandering answer to how culture fits into people process platform. Culture, metaculture, and values dictate the actual culture, and the actual culture dictates the people process platform. And if you don't have the values and the vision and the cultures and the customs and the traditions set up front and lived by every employee, from the new intern to the CEO, it all falls apart. So I would suggest, if you want further reading on this, dig into ethnography. And it's part of anthropology. It's the study of people and cultures and how these things work, because you can come up with a ton of really interesting ideas about how to measure culture and then how to improve it. So it's called ethnography. It's a wide-ranging academic field of study that's fascinating. Thanks for the question, and as always, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.